Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tribune Sports Live. I'm Zach Steele, sitting in for Alan Taylor tonight. My friend Kyle Parmley from the Trussville Tribune. Kyle, how are you?
Oh, it's great to be here. Having a good time.
All right, so Thursday night, we actually had to play some of these games Thursday night in round one of the playoffs. A lot of it due to weather. Of course, the Hewitt game was already going to be played on that night, but bad conditions really for all these games this week. Yeah,
I know. Personally, I was a little shocked because you usually don't see games moved in the masses like that unless there's severe weather supposed to be coming in. And Friday, there was just the likelihood of storms and showers and storms, but other than that, it really caused a lot of chaos there early in the week trying to figure out who's playing when.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the Hewitt Huskies and their opening round loss to James Clemens.
At Bryant Bank, we focus on you. You'll never have to worry about being just another number in the system. When you're a member of the Bryant Bank family, our Bryant Bankers will work to understand who you are, where you want to go, and how we can help you to get there. We're big believers in developing relationships with our customers, and we value friendships we make along the way. Bryant Bank provides unbeatable service and legendary results. Bryant Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
Gunnar Roy would like to invite you to visit one of their 3 stores on Deerfoot Parkway. Both Shell locations on Deerfoot offer delicious Hunt Brothers pizza, one at Highway 11 and the other at Old Springville Road, which was a BP and now has a fabulous new look customers need to see to believe. The Chevron at Happy Hollow Road features mouth-watering pop donuts that are delivered fresh each and every morning. A proud supporter of the community for more than 20 years, offering quality products at a fair price in a clean environment with friendly and efficient service, Gunnar Oil.
The thing that they did and they've done all year is they were optimistic on stuff. They returned the punt. They took advantage of some mistakes we made. And our defense did a great job. I mean, they never drove the field and scored on our defense ever. So we just made too many mistakes. And, it was tough getting our pace going. We weren't being able to move real fast. We just couldn't ever get the rhythm.
That's kind of my next question. Obviously, not being able to get in their rhythm, that was probably the reason that you couldn't get to the end zone. What did you try to do at halftime, obviously, to make some adjustments?
Yeah. Well, we obviously had to take some chances. We came out here, didn't know on the defense. I thought we had a chance. Scored down there, and we just didn't get it done in there. We had a ton of penalties on us tonight. We just had a lot of them. And it really hurt us. Again, it was another reason. We got it some second shorts, and then we get a penalty. It'd be second 12. And again, it's just the way things were out here. It's tough to do that. So we just didn't recover very well.
Coach, going forward, you got a good game coming back. What do you do in the off season to prepare for that next season?
Well, you just it's the same as every off season. You got to see what you get out. We always try to adjust to whatever our personnel is. We have some good guys coming back. I want to say something about our seniors. I can't be more proud of them. That is a really special group for me. Because I've said it several times last few weeks, they bought in everything we were trying to do from the beginning. And I think they've laid a great foundation for the future. I hate that it had to end this way. I don't know why. I don't know why we had to go through so many stinking injuries. Because I think we had a legitimate chance this year to do something. Especially after going. We thought before the season, but after going through and playing everybody, we had a legit shot. It's one of those things you just have to learn from it and grow. And I know we got a lot of. Think about our seniors. We got a lot of guys that they're good football players. They're going to do big things in their life.
Welcome back. The Hewitt Huskies traveled up to Madison to take on James Clemens in round one of the playoffs. A rough night for the Husky offense as they run into a very good James Clemens defense and just can't get anything going, Kyle.
Yeah, and we know the injury to Zach Thomas and all that really kind of put the brakes on their offense the rest of the season, and they come in as kind of one-dimensional. James Clemens knows they've got to run the football, and with only that to stop, they really didn't have any success.
And we talked about this after the Thomas injury. The Husky offense, was such a two-headed monster all year with Zach Thomas and Jerry and Street. Well, you take one of those away, and all of a sudden Jerry gets all the attention. it worked pretty well against ClayChalkville in Week 10, but this week they just could get nothing going.
Yeah, and you always kind of see that with rivalry games. You know, a team comes in really spirited, trying to add a little extra lift after one of their best player goes down. But, yeah, James Clemens is a really good football team, and, you know, Hewitt, to be on the same field with him, was going to have, you know, all cylinders clicking, and that just wasn't the case.
The Husky defense had probably one of their best games of the season against James Clemens. They only give up 163 yards rushing in the game, minimal yards passing. All of the points in this game, really, James Clemens scored off of turnovers. You had a safety in the end zone, you had a fumble recovery by James Clemens in the end zone, and then a long special teams, a punt return, and a long kickoff return to set up the other scores.
Yeah, and you see a lot of that happen when Hewitt was losing the field position battle. You know, you mentioned all those things. A lot of them are happening when they're very deep in their own territory. The pressure gets put on you at that point, and it's a lot easier to make mistakes down there, and those mistakes are much more costly at that point.
And terrible field conditions didn't help. You heard it was a swamp. If you heard anything from the Trussell Tribune feed on this on Twitter, the field conditions were just terrible. Footing was bad all night. Jerry and Street couldn't make those great cuts that he's used to putting that foot in the ground and going. He just couldn't do it this week. And a lot of things just went wrong for the Huskies in this ball game, and really at the end of the year, they just had all sorts of bad luck.
Yeah, and when you see those kind of field conditions, it always evens the playing field to a degree. But as we talked about, Hewitt just couldn't overcome all those mistakes, and James Clemens didn't really make their mistakes. So it's just kind of a losing battle at that point, and you can't really come back, like we said, with the swampland they were playing in.
Well, the season ends for the Huskies. They finished 6-5. A very disappointing finish for them. They, back middle of the year, we were looking at them as maybe one of the premier teams in the state. A lot of injuries, not just Zach Thomas. You have some injuries along the offensive line, and a lot of things just don't go their way. A lot of bad luck this year. What do the Huskies do as they go into the offseason and get ready for next year?
Well, the case with high school is you're never going to have anybody more than 3 or 4 years. So the mark of a good program is being able to develop those young kids coming up, because you're not going to have you don't have to recruit. So your job as a head coach of a program is just to develop what you've got and to put the best product on the field that you can. And that's what they brought Josh Floyd in to do. So going into year 3, we're really going to see what kind of mark he's going to make in the long term.
And they've got a lot of good names coming back. Noah Igbenogany is coming back. He had a great year at receiver. Grayson Cash had a great year playing both ways. And it was nice to see Davis Bergen get in. We see what the future is going to be like with him. So I still think the future's bright for the Huskies. They lose some great players. They lose Jerry and Street, headed to Ole Miss. Bailey McElwain committed to Stanford, and Zach Thomas, of course, a blue-chip quarterback. Yeah. They lose a lot of weapons, but I still think they have a lot of weapons coming back.
But I think that is an encouraging sign to have a handful of guys that are going to big-time places, because that shows that there's a pool of talent here. And, nobody was really sure, what are we going to see? Who's the quarterback after Zach? Davis comes in, does a really good job. And I think showing what he showed the last 2 weeks, especially against ClayChalkville, kind of gives you some hope going forward that position might be okay.
All right, when we come back, the ClayChalkville Cougars opened up round 1 against Coleman, and it was much of the same. The Cougars winning very easily, 48-14. We'll talk about that when we return.
Jefferson Memorial Funeral Home and Gardens is home-owned and operated by the Seal family. I've known Eddie Seal and his son Adam for over 25 years. They're community-oriented and, more importantly, good folks who know how to take care of people in their time of need. That's how Jefferson Memorial became Trussville's funeral home and cemetery. Jefferson Memorial is located at 1591 Gadsden Highway. You can call them at 322-0543. Before your need arises, let Jefferson Memorial family take care of your family.
Trussell Vision Care is now proud to offer sports vision training for athletes. This sports-specific training improves hand-eye coordination and reaction time. As a former college athlete, Dr. Steele knows how important perfect vision is to succeed on the athletic field. For athletes, 20/20 vision is not enough. Trussville Vision Care.
Well, I thought we handled business, you know. We hadn't played Coleman very much. And so, you know, playing on Thursday, the atmosphere is a little different. So it was all about, are you going to handle your business? And I thought we really did. You know, we took control of the game after the second series. And I thought, you know, offensively we played great. Defensively played really well. And that was good to see. You know, that's where you should be during the playoffs. So, hats off to Coleman, classy buck. They got a good football team, kind of young. Look for big things from them.
Coach, offense was really clicking. Passing game was really clicking there in the first half. It really came together there. You had a minute and 31 seconds, and you guys just marched down. You know, y'all seen that 3 or 4 times this year. You know, we're calm. Stewart does a great job of calling it during that time, and our kids execute. So if you get a good first down out of it, then you got a chance to do something. Coach, throughout this season, it's kind of added up now. You've been able to take some snaps off of your starters in several games. How big is that with an extended season like that?
Well, what we told them today, you know, you got 240 minutes of football if you go all the way. So if you can't give it up for that, then, you know, you got trouble. But what it does for our program is when those other kids get in the state playoff game, next year when we play, they're, you know, not deer in the headlights, not intimidated by the situation, so a little bit of experience.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Appreciate it. Thank you. First off, how's it feel to be moving on now, second round, and continuing your season?
It feels great. Every day, every week, we always talk about, can we see another Monday? And today, we proved that we can see another Monday. We're just going to move on and get better and better each and every day.
Absolutely, man. Defense looked good tonight. Obviously, Coleman really tried to run it at you guys a lot tonight. How'd you feel like you guys held up physically?
We did pretty good. See, we figured the Coleman run game was going to be good. So, like, we fought hard and we just did the best we could do.
How is it, you know, obviously playing on your side of the ball, you guys do a great job on the defensive side. Plus, you know, you have an offense that's able to go out there and put up so many points, man. What kind of confidence does that give the defense going out there?
It gives a good confidence because even though we might give us a touchdown, we know our offense can contribute and score another touchdown. So we go out and hold our heads up. We'll be good.
Absolutely, man. Coleman kind of marched it on you guys there on that first drive of the game. After that, though, you really tightened up. Did you make any adjustments, or was it just a mindset?
Yeah, it was just a mindset thing. We just had to get our mindset. And then on do the game. We just carried on. It's real good.
Awesome. Team Young, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
Welcome back. The ClayChalkville Cougars had an easy one in round 1 as they took on Coleman. The Cougars suffered no lingering effects from the emotional win in Week 10 over the Hewitt Huskies. They pretty much came out and this thing was over at halftime.
Yeah, that's one of the things Coach Hood has been so good at, getting his team grounded as soon as possible after a game, and gives them as much time as possible to really get their minds right and get prepared for the next game.
Coleman came out, took the opening drive down the field and scored, actually took the 7-0 lead, and after that it was all Clay. It was 38-7 at halftime, like we said. The Clay defense really played well.
Yeah, if you don't score and answer ClayChalkville every time you've got the ball, it's just so hard to beat them, because as their offense has proven over and over again, they're going to match you, and they're just, I mean, if you get a handful of stops, you're happy. So as an opponent, you've got to be able to answer, and Coleman just wasn't able to do that.
Ty Pigram continues to impress. 16 for 23, 275 yards, 4 touchdown passes, 2 apiece to Nico Collins and TJ Simmons. The guy just seems to get better and better every week.
He just makes it look so easy. It's great that he's got 2 weapons on either side of him, and it's not, you know, a lot of high school offenses, if they have a great receiver, they just have 1. But ClayChalkville's got 2, and as a high school defense, it's really hard to stop that. And I mean, Pigram, if he doesn't have anybody to throw to, he can run. It's just, they're so dynamic, and it's really hard to stop.
Well, they're so good that I'm showing friends of mine, I'm pulling it up on YouTube, our footage, and saying, here, look at this guy. Look, this guy is amazing, and look at who he has to throw to. So they're just a joy to watch, and we hope that they continue. 26th win in a row for ClayChalkville.
That's really impressive. The program before Coach Hood got here 7 years ago was a middling kind of 500 bunch. You didn't know if they were going to make the playoffs each year, but the run that they've been on the last 4 or 5 years has been nothing short of incredible, really.
All right, Clay gets to host Homewood in round 2. We're going to talk about that one in just a few moments. When we come back, we're going to talk about Pinson Valley and their ball game in round 1 against Austin. We'll be back.
Tribune Sports Live is sponsored in part by State Senator Slade Blackwell of District 15. Senator Blackwell represents parts of Talladega, Shelby, and Jefferson counties, including the Trussville area. A former high school and college athlete, Senator Blackwell is pleased to promote our local schools and student athletes. As football season gets underway, it's time to say, go Huskies, go Cougars, and go Indians. Here's to a successful and safe year for all who are involved with high school athletics in our area.
Well, right now the forecast looks great for Friday night in ClayChalkville's playoff game against Homewood. It will be clear and cool Friday with the highs only reaching the upper 50s, so definitely grab your winter jacket if you're going to the game. The lows will be in the 30s Friday night.
Welcome back. The Pinson Valley Indians ran into a buzzsaw as they go up and take on Decatur Austin, losing this one 35-7. But Pinson takes the opening drive. They drive down the field. They come very close to putting it in to start the ball game. Would the game have been different if they score that touchdown?
You know, I tend to think so. I don't know that they would have won, but the game would have held on a lot longer. They drove down, and then on 4th and 1, they brought in Jay Woods, who's a cornerback. He's committed to South Alabama, a really good ball player. They brought him in to take a direct snap and try to run the ball. Coach Glover told me after the game they thought they had something there because they hadn't run that play in a few weeks. But Austin was all over it, and it got stuffed. And Austin takes the ball from that point, goes all the way down the field looking to score, but they fumbled the ball at the 1-yard line. So Pinson gets some momentum back, but on 3rd down, the quarterback just threw it up in the air, and Austin picked it off, took it in for the 7-0 lead. And at that point, you just kind of feel the air let out like, uh-oh, we might be in trouble tonight.
Well, and when you're playing a team like Austin, they have a very punishing run game. And, it remind me a little bit of Arkansas in the SEC. They're just going to pound you, smother you with that run game. They had 350 yards rushing. They had, like you said in the article, 3 guys almost go for 100 yards plus.
Well, they had 3 really good running backs. 2 of those running backs went over 100. In the 3rd, he scored a touchdown. And even their quarterback, I think he ended up with about 98 yards. So, and he scored a pair of touchdowns. Just from all over the place, they just hit Pinson Valley in the mouth with fresh set of legs over and over again, and it was just too much.
So Pinson finishes a really nice year, 7-4. Lots to build on going into next year, and they were a bit of a surprise to us, I think, this year. Yeah, well, in my game preview, I wrote about looking back at the spring. Coach Glover told his team that making the playoffs is not our goal anymore. They wanted to become a program that can consistently win some games each year because this was the 7th season. They've made the playoffs the last 6 years, so they've become a consistent program, getting to the postseason every year. But yeah, I thought it would be a struggle for them to get there this year after they lost Nick Gibson and a handful of other guys. But yeah, they were a team this year, and they really proved a lot of people wrong and had a good season. Well, when Alan and I sat here in our preseason show, we looked down the schedule and we said, boy, that looks tough. How are they going to make the playoffs? And they actually wind up having a very good year. Lots to build on going into next year, so they can hold their heads high. They had a good season this year.
Sure, they've got a lot of skilled players coming back, so I expect them to be able to build on this year.
All right, when we come back, we're going to preview ClayChalkville and their round 2 opponent, the Homewood Patriots.
Whether you're looking to buy your first home or you're trying to sell the one you're in now and need advice from a realtor, turn to Lee Marlow, Realty South Realtor. Contact Lee today at 205-913-9559 or visit Lee at leemarlowhomes.com.
And now it's time for Tribune Sports Live Players of the Week, brought to you by Gunter Oil. Our first Players of the Week from Hewitt Trussville are the entire defense. This year's Hewitt Trussville defense stood out more so than the last 2 classes before them by stopping drives from their opponents, limiting their opponent's scores, being strong on the line and in their secondary, and staying salty in every game. Our next player of the week comes from ClayChalkville, senior Andrew Van Winkle. He connected on 2 field goals in the postseason opener to bump his scoring total up to 94 on the season. First, Van Winkle struck from 46 yards out before adding a 29-yarder in the second half. He has delivered on 8 of his 12 field goal attempts this season. And our player of the week from Pinson Valley High School is Kamel Chaverst. He had 114 yards on Pinson Valley's only touchdown on his 18 carries. Congratulations to you all on a fine season. This has been Tribune Sports Live Players of the Week, brought to you by Gunter Oil.
Paul Davis Emergency Services of Northeast Birmingham helps by providing needed cleanup and restoration services. Through the appropriate tools and processes, we avoid wasting valuable time to get your property to its previous state as quickly as we possibly can. Through our experience with restoration services in Birmingham, we can determine the necessary services depending on your property and type of damage, which may include smoke and fire damage restoration, water damage restoration, wind damage restoration, and mold removal. Paul Davis, Recover, Reconstruct, Restore. 205-687-0556.
Welcome back. All right, now let's talk a little bit about Clay's round 2 opponent, the Homewood Patriots, a team that's no stranger to the playoffs.
Yeah, they had a pretty easy victory last week over Lee Huntsville, beating them 49-14. Proves their record to 9-2. And I actually do a radio show late Friday nights after that station does a high school game, and there's a couple of Homewood guys in there, and they were talking about how great their team was on Friday night, and how they were thinking they really had something for Clay. I kind of disagreed with them, but I didn't want to burst their bubble too quick.
Well, they're a program with a lot of tradition in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They've won some state championships. They're used to being in big games. But I'm with you. I don't think they've seen anything like this ClayChalkville offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think they feel good about their team, but as we said when we were talking about the ClayChalkville game, you just have to be able to answer almost every single time. And if that snowball starts rolling downhill, it starts rolling real quick when you're playing ClayChalkville.
Well, they put a lot of pressure on opposing offenses because you have to go out and score every time you have the ball if you have a chance to stay in the game.
And that, I mean, in putting that much pressure on your offense in one way makes your offense more prone to mistakes because you're trying to force some things and you can't just play within yourself. Like you have to, if you play within yourself, it's probably not good enough. You've got to elevate your level even more, and you see sometimes that kind of backfires on you.
Well, and we've seen it time and time again. You go down and say you score against ClayChalkville, and you're feeling good about yourself, and then they're going to come back and they're going to score on a drive in about 45 seconds in about 3 plays.
Yeah, and there's a chance they score on the first play of the drive. But I'm with you. Coach Hood gets their guys so prepared, so ready for each game. He's not going to take this opponent lightly. Homewood's going to be ready, but Clay's going to be ready as well. And I think ClayChalkville should win this game comfortably.
All right, give me a score. You pick them to win, but give me a score.
I'll say ClayChalkville 42, Homewood 24.
All right, I'll go with that. I'll go with something similar. I'll say 42-17. I just looking at some of the teams when you talk about opponents and the schedules of teams, I think Clay's probably going to wear them out pretty easily. I like Clay in this ball game. Maybe close for a quarter or so, but I just don't think they can keep up. So that's our show. We'll be back next week, and we'll just have one team to talk about. Congratulations to the Hewitt Huskies and the Pinson Valley Indians on very good seasons. I know probably didn't turn out the way they'd like to, but again, great seasons. ClayChalkville still rolling, and we'll be back to talk about them next week. For Kyle Parmley, I'm Zach Steele. Good night, everybody.